Nigerian Meteorological Agency predicts thunderstorms and hazardous weather conditions during 2023 rainy season.
283 days.
Nigeria Immigration Service hands over 11 Libya-bound human trafficking victims to NTA.
National Assembly postpones resumption of plenary to 21st of March 2023.
And good morning, Nigeria. Today, we continue our conversation on concerns and issues around the forthcoming governorship elections.
And as the daily countdown continues towards the rescheduled governorship and state houses of assembly elections now slated for March 18th, the forthcoming polls present another opportunity for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to redeem its pledged allegiance to Nigeria and Nigerians by conducting free, fair and credible elections.
No question about that, Jumai. Nigerians expect, of course, nothing short of free and fair elections on Saturday. And INEC is expected to have looked inwards by doing some soul-searching as well as critical evaluation of his performance in the presidential and National Assembly elections of the 25th of February. And this, of course, with a view to stepping up its game in the governorship and state House of Assembly elections that will be coming up this Saturday.
And considering the fact that all eyes are on Nigeria, the onus is on INEC not just to conduct the second round of the general elections, but for the processes to be seen and perceived to be free, fair and credible, especially in the eyes of various observation missions that are on ground to monitor the credibility of the elections.
Well, as disappointing as the rescheduling of the elections may have been for some of the voters on account, of course, of the inconveniences arising therefrom, many argue that the rescheduling should have given INEC now the opportunity to redress some of the logistics challenges that attended the first set of elections on the 25th of February. And of course, we know that those logistic challenges triggered late arrival of materials and presiding officers, and therefore late commencement of accreditation and voting, which went well into the night, as well as declaration of results at the polling units. And Nigerians certainly are looking forward to a better deal on the 18th.
Now, another thing to look out for, Kingsley, in Saturday's election is whether some state governors seeking re-election or political parties seeking continuity in power will be able to withstand the voter tsunami that truncated that ambition of several seasoned politicians during the presidential and National Assembly elections.
And from what we saw in terms of the outcome of the National Assembly elections, a number of sitting governors who were bidding to go to the upper legislative chamber in the Senate lost out in the course of the elections. And this, many argue, was due to the power of the so-called third force. So we have very interesting governorship rates afoot, as well as, in some cases, state House of Assembly elections that are also very interesting. States like Lagos, Oyo, Rivers, Abia, Enugu, Anambra, Edo, Nasarawa, and Benue are obviously now being identified as battleground states, especially for political parties that wish to retain their strongholds. And already the Labour Party has clarified that it is not in any measure or any arrangement with any other political party for the governorship elections.
Now, meanwhile, following the appellate court's judgment granting INEC the right to reconfigure the bimodal voters accreditation system BVAS machines, the commission said it will need 5 working days, counting from last week when the judgment was given, I guess, to reconfigure the BVAS machine used in the 1,706,914 polling units where voting will also take place for the governorship elections.
One of the latest pieces of information we have now is that the reconfiguration of the BVAS machine should be over by tomorrow, Tuesday, not later than perhaps Wednesday, just ahead of voting. But one of the things that, of course, stakeholders, and this will include voters, INEC itself, political parties, the candidates, as well as observers, will be that there will be, of course, greater security for voters on the day of polling, because there were some instances in some of the locations where violence was recorded. Voting was disrupted by a number of hooligans, and the police authorities did say that there were a number of arrests that were made. Well over 200 arrests were made, and we do hope that those persons will be diligently prosecuted. And more importantly, that the many instances of voter suppression, which have lingered even after February 25th, will be taken care of.
Indeed, the commitment of the security agencies to election security may go a long way to encouraging more sections of the electorate to vote. And it remains to be seen if the governorship will record more turnout or less compared with the presidential elections. We shall continue our focus on the concerns and issues of the governorship polls on Good Morning Nigeria today, the first edition for the week. I am Jummai Yusuf. Welcome you to the program.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Jumai to also welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, broadcasting from our Abuja headquarters studios in the nation's capital. We shall presently be taking the highlights of the morning news, and thereafter we'll have business and newspaper review. So here is Noline Belame, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Noline.
Good morning, Kingsley and Jumai. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. It was a remarkable feeling of nostalgia as President Muhammadu Buhari on Sunday reunited with his old schoolmates at his Daura country home. The reunion was quite emotional and was an exciting moment that brought back fond memories between President Muhammadu Buhari and his old schoolmates. Members of the group, under the auspices of the Association of 1953 Middle School Intake, was 96 at formation, but have only about a quarter now surviving. Members of the delegation took turns to appreciate the president for his selflessness in service, sacrifice for Nigeria, and giant strides achieved in critical sectors of the economy. The resumption of Senate and House plenary sessions earlier scheduled for Tuesday, 14th of March 2023, have been postponed to Tuesday, 21st of March 2023. Statements by the clerks of the red and green chambers note that the shift is to enable members take active part in the rescheduled governorship election across the states. A bit on weather and predictions. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency says the 2023 rainy season has commenced and warns that the season will be accompanied by thunderstorms and hazardous weather conditions.
The season is expected to range from 84 to 283 days. Abuja and surrounding states are expected to witness between 170 to 230 days of rain.
The deployment of immediate relief items to victims of fire disaster in Malamawa and Karangia villages in Jigawa State by the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has been described as a high sense of responsibility exhibited by the agency, as well as the relentless effort of the state government at ensuring that the people get the right supports, says the Deputy Governor Umar Namadi, who received the items on behalf of the state government.
The situation is terrible. More than half of the town you have gone around with us to see has totally been destroyed. People have lost their houses, their belongings, and everything you can think of.
In other news, the Nigeria Immigration Service has handed 11 Libya-bound human trafficking victims over to the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, in Sokoto. A statement by the Nigeria Immigration Service explains that the 11 victims, all women, were apprehended in Niger Republic and repatriated to Nigeria by the Niger Republic Police. Akuneme further reveals that the young women are from different parts of the country and are aged between 19 and 37. They have been handed over to the Sokoto NAPTIP office by NIS Elela Border Command. The statement advises Nigerians to desist from undertaking such perilous journeys. The Ogun State Police Command has arrested 5 members of a ritualist gang who have allegedly been exhuming corpses from graves and removing their parts for ritual purposes. A statement by the police public relations officer in Ogun State, Abimbola Oyemi, explains that the suspects were arrested following an information received by the police at Adopulu Division headquarters that the gang, who are allegedly responsible for series of corpse exhumation within Ososa community, were planning to carry out another round of human parts harvest. Police says on interrogation, the suspects made confessional statements that they are into the business of exhuming corpses from graves and sell to buyers who need them for money rituals in parts. In the meantime, the Ogun State Commissioner of Police, Frank Mba, has directed that the suspects be transferred to the State Criminal Investigation Department for discreet investigation. A 26-year-old suspected drug trafficker, Alai Madu, has been arrested with 10 kilograms of skunk. The suspect, believed to be a former Boko Haram fighter for 15 years, was arrested by NDLEA operatives along Abuja-Kaduna Express Road during a sting operation. In the same vein, 3 cannabis farms measuring 39.8 hectares have been destroyed in Kajola, a border town between Edo and Ondo State. A suspected traditional ruler, Akinola Adebayo, was arrested in connection with the culturing of the illicit substance. Meanwhile, the week-long operation saw the arrest of 35 others over alleged trafficking of more than 2.2 tons of illicit drugs at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, and 12 other states. That's the news for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Jumai and Kingsley after the commercial break. Please don't go away. I am Nolin Ebel Ame. Good morning.
Concentrated detergent. 2 times the work. 2 times the speed. 2 times the strength. To win, we know what it takes. New So Clean 30% concentrated detergent. Now with 2 times the cleaning power. So Clean. For a faster, brighter, cleaner wash. With 2 times the cleaning power. So Clean, the official regional partner of Paris Saint-Germain.
My son has always dreamt of being in the spotlight. That's why I give him Bornvita for everyday vitality that gives him the strength to pursue his dreams. Bornvita, strength to dream.
Okay, I learned about the Jeep loan through Mrs. Umar, who is the desk officer in Calabar South of the National Orientation Agency. I registered through her. Thereafter, I was shortlisted. At first, when I heard about the program, I didn't believe it. I was thinking it was a scam because I've been hearing a thing of this, and I've been so rampant everywhere. But I was optimistic that it will come to reality. Before now, I was unable to own a stand. Before now, I was able to get few important ones, and that's been helping me to work, and at the same time make me own a stand where accessories are being sold. So I thank the federal government for the program.
The counsel of our fathers I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
My name is Gifty Robremat. I am in Basic 2. I am from Oba Community Primary School 2. The people from Ubek, representative from the Abia State Government, headmistress and teachers from Oba Community Primary School 2. My fellow pupils, ladies and gentlemen, good day. We welcome you to this unique occasion. We thank our President Muhammadu Buhari for the school feeding program. Some of us do not eat while coming to school, but this school feeding has helped us a lot. May God bless our presidents and governors in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, Mr.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Up next is business news with Kunle Ade.
With all processes now digitized globally, experts in digital economy are calling for a more inclusive approach to incorporate every class into the process. Digital Skills and Service Unit of the Nigerian Communications Commission intends to partner all tiers of government to actualize this agenda. The NCC emphasized that Digital Economy Initiative aims to ensure that every individual, business, and government will be digitally enabled by 2030.
The digital economy space is such a complex space because on one side, it gives society all you need. We are living in a world now where everything is digital. And for Nigeria as a nation to sustain, exist, and be successful, we need to have the growth of digital economy. Right now, we know that the digital space is mostly taken over by men, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what is NCC doing? One of our key focus is understanding the need to develop the female in STEM subject, in STEM courses. That's the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we believe very much in starting them young. We have various programs we are targeting that will target the women at the girl child all the way up to the mature women.
The NCC is also calling for a public-private partnership initiative that will birth a more competitive digitized economic space. With business news, I'm Kunle Ade.
All right, thank you very much there for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next is newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Chukudi Okolo Waja, is seated in the studio looking crispy. Good morning.
Thank you, Juma. You call it newspaper review. I call it tea time with the Good Morning Nigeria crew.
That's lovely.
Good to see you guys again.
Hope you had a swell weekend.
Yes, Kingsley, the rains are setting in. And I spell agriculture in the horizon.
And the predictions are not so good anyway.
They said there will be flooding.
Yeah, thunderstorm and this weather.
No, thunderstorms usually accompany the commencement of the rains,
so
as also end the rain.
It's going to be worse this year.
Well, yeah, but it won't happen every day, just for those who have the advisory to take requisite precautions against such occurrences.
Especially airlines.
Airlines, that's pilots and all that. So let's take a look at the front pages of the three papers we have this morning. Fairly busy. Blueprint. 17 killed in southern Kaduna attacks and reprisals. 24-hour curfew imposed on affected local governments. Ex-Boko Haram fighter, Monarch and others nabbed in Edo and Ondo over drugs. The lead story comes with a kicker. ACF to Buhari on Naira redesign. Ignoring Supreme Court order can lead to anarchy. Says 10 days long enough for federal government to comply. Adeleke urges CBN to call banks to order. Commercial banks count losses amid cash scarcity. Abia government threatens to sanction individuals rejecting old notes. And then some other headlines we'll take from that front page will include the following. Call for Adamu's sack. Adamu is the chairman of the APC. Time to show Salihu, Lukman, others out. That's according to APC group. Once fifth columnist against hitting the polity. It's time we address power balancing in party. Racism. Seplat lied on charges and revocation of CEO's Nigeria work permit and visa. February 25th polls. Agents of destabilization calling for sack of INEC boss. Naira strengthens against dollar as voters sell election spoils. That's attributed to Rewani. 2 PDP chieftains in Bauchi back 3-year jail for 142 million naira bribes scam. And then let loyalty and competence count. Informing your cabinet, group tells Tinubu. Joman, let me also very quickly, if you don't mind, take the leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper, just below the nameplate, we have the following headlines. Senate President, Tinubu APC leaders move to placate Christians in Southeast. They have set up false plans, shut down of broadcast stations. Repentant terrorists, 36 others arrested for drug trafficking. First Nigerian female senator, Franca Afegboa, dies at 79. Rex to brief INEC chairman on Beavers reconfiguration today. And then it says upload of presidential results suffers glitches on RF. APC groups warn against planned protests by LP supporters, say its invitation to crisis. Now, that's the photograph there on the front page of the leadership. The remains of a corps member who was killed in the Lagos train accident last week, being taken for burial in Lagos yesterday.
Let's quickly go to the New Telegram newspaper, and just above the masthead, company income tax, that's CIT, financial institutions boost payment to 1.1 trillion naira under Buhari. And it's almost the same headlines Kingsley read from the leadership and the blueprint newspaper on the new naira redesign and failure to obey court order would lead to anarchy. ACF warns Buhari. At the side piece of the picture, with a picture message, you see gubernatorial post, Bode George asks Yakubu to sack INEC ICT Director Odubi. You find details on page 6. Insecurity, 40 killed in Kaduna, Katsina attacks. Monarch flees as hoodlums attack palace, destroy properties. Details on page 5, 6, and 30. Niger, help us, no food, no money. Victims of bandit attack cry out. There is hope for better Nigeria, says Olubado. You find the details on page 30. PDP threatens protest over alleged indiscriminate arrest of members in Oshun. Details on page 26. Senate, ex-governors continue to hold the A's as 12 former outgoing governors scale hurdle to make 10th Senate. 3 others to no fate after supplementary polls. At the bottom plate of the New Telegraph, Bajabi Amila El-Rufai tipped for Chief of Staff and SGF. You find details on page 2, 8, and 28. And with riders, Tinubu plans unity government, Southeast to get Senate President. Group asks APC's national chair Adamu to resign. And National Assembly leadership, Tinubu APC leaders to meet lawmakers elect today. And on IECO, how INEC can prevent controversy, you find the details on page 4. Polls coverage, withdraw threat to shut down broadcast stations. That's coming from Serap to the federal government. And as Kingsley read, Nigeria's first female senator, Franca Afegboa, dies at 1979. One interesting story there, I mean, is an information at the bottom plate of the New Telegraph is visiting the dentist could prevent arthritis. That's coming from a study. You find the details on page 8. Chukudi.
Well, thank you, Jumai. In those days, on the news desk, actually, in news reading, we tucked obituary, into the tail end of the bulletin. But I need to start with this. Nigeria's first female senator, Franca Afebua, dies. And I'm going to say, an amazing female titan is gone. The lady wasn't just created well by God. She was maximally expressive in terms of her communication skills. One can only ask that she secures sweet repose,
And before you leave that, I think we need to straighten some of the facts. Chief Franca Afebua was the first elected senator in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. She represented the old Bended North senatorial district in the Second Republic.
83.
It's in the Second Republic. Second Republic was from 1979 to 1983. She was a beautician, as you mentioned, and of course, elegant and also very solid in terms of her contributions, to the Senate. The point I'm making is that there is another lady who was Nigeria's first senator.
Okay.
But she was not elected. She became a senator by nomination, or if you like, by appointment.
Yes.
Okay. That's Wuro-Ola Esan. Wuro-Ola Esan was in the Southwest, where she was nominated into what was then known as the Senate of the Nigerian National Assembly. She was nominated but not elected. The first elected female senator of the Federal Republic. Remember, we became a republic in 1963. It's Franca Afebua, who was just passed away at the age of 79. She would have been 80, of course, later this year. Chukudi.
Kingsley would always be beckoned to by factuality and accuracy.
Exactly.
Thank you so much there.
Thank you.
Okay, Naira redesign, Arewa Consultative Forum, ACF, reportedly angry with President Muhammadu Buhari, says chaos, anarchy loom. ACF through its Secretary General, that's Muritala Aliyu, said in a statement that not obeying the Supreme Court order could lead to nationwide breakdown of law and order. I think what they're intoning here is that if the presidency is seen and proved not to be obeying the Supreme Court order, that could set a bad precedent, and other people will begin to. But the presidency has not said they are not obeying the Supreme Court order. I think what is very loud there is silence over this matter, So you can't...
A resounding silence.
A resounding silence. You can technically say that they are not obeying the court order. But then I don't know anybody who has seen the old 1,000 naira note. I don't know. Have you seen it? Because if you have seen it, then it is factually incorrect to say that they are not obeying the court order. So, have you seen it? That's the point.
I've not seen any cash for more than 1 month.
Jumai?
Yes.
This is serious business.
It is serious. I've not seen cash for more than 1 month. So I talk more of seeing the old notes.
I'll just, I've refrained from commenting on this issue.
Yes.
I don't know. I've just, one of the things to ask is, look, the Supreme Court, according to the reports that we read, annulled or struck down the president's directive on the continued use of only the 200 naira notes up to the 10th of April, if you remember the president's broadcast. The Supreme Court struck down that particular policy that the president announced. So what else do you want the president to do? If you have struck it down to say, I've heard you, you've struck it down, you've struck it down. That's just one point. there are several others to say. I think that ultimately part of the issue that is more relevant, if you ask me, is the attitude of Nigerians who use currencies as legal tender for exchange for goods and services. They say people are rejecting the outgoing Naira notes. That is to say 500 and 1,000. They are rejecting it. If you go to the banks, they say some banks are paying out those monies, but that people who get those monies cannot use them for transactions. So what is that's why some state governments are threatening. I don't know whether that's within their remit anyway, to prosecute those who are rejecting the outgoing 1,000 and 500 Naira notes. So some persons will say, oh, they say they are waiting for a new directive from the president. It may very well be so, but is there a compulsion? I talked about habit and practice in the use of certain ideas or even currencies. If people are rejecting it, what do you do? I think that's the key question. If you legislate it and people continue to reject it, what do you do? I think that's the key thing.
Kingsley,
yes.
we talked
and
about
then, I'm sorry, Chukwudi, sorry, let me also, we seem now to have conveniently forgotten that some of the banks were actually holding the brand new notes.
Yes.
Here in the Federal Capital Territory, a branch manager was arrested because they found in the vault of the bank over 260 million Naira. So everybody has forgotten about that. Part of the challenge was that the banks were those, commercial banks, were those responsible for this issue that we just came up with.
I wouldn't be surprised if it gets eventually proved that some of these banks were actually channeling the new Naira notes to politicians from whom it was they were deliberately being kept back from to guard against vote buying. So some underhand business, hanky-panky, here and there, that's for sure. But what I wanted to say is, we talked about this the other time. The power and relevance of communication when something of this magnitude happens. Kingsley says, what else? The court has struck it down and all that. Nigerians are not as confident and informed as we think. Even those who have gone to the citadels and taken a lot of certificates, a statement would still need to be made either from the central bank, whoever the representative of government is. Yes, it empowers and enables and encourages the people to go back to the old habit of using these Naira notes. I think that is relevant. I talked about it way back. I think we need it.
Some people say they will collect the old Naira notes from the banks. When they want to redeposit the money in the banks will not collect it.
No, the banks are collected, but they say you have to fill a complete form. Yes. I've not encountered that experience. They say you have to complete a form and so on and so forth for them to accept it back. Now, how much of the outgoing Naira notes does the CBN still have? Because if you recall, those Naira notes were supposed to have been deposited up until the 10th of March, and then the deadline was shifted to the 10th of February. If the central bank withdrew the old Naira notes or outgoing Naira notes from the system, did they immediately destroy them?
No.
I'm not answering for this rhetorical question I'm posing. Yeah. Did they destroy them as normally would be the practice, or I don't know. So these are issues in banker-customer relations.
Yes. That's the point, and I really appreciate you saying it's a rhetorical question because we can't really answer it.
Yeah,
nobody can.
There's another issue. That's why I said I've been reluctant to discuss this. Look, administratively, everybody will be saying, CBN, do this, you must do this, you must do that. Let's be realistic. The CBN Act directs the CBN to, of course, take instructions from the president, to clear with the president. Yes, you can have the matter in the air to say this is the decision. If your appointed or supervisory authority in that respect has not given you a directive, how do you act?
Well, sure, that's
administratively.
That's a big point.
Let's be realistic.
That's a big point. A lot of communication.
And then the other issue. There are many of them, but the other issue. Look, We read it here. Call for Adamu sack. I've been seeing the headlines in the papers. Abdullahi Adamu, he was a two-term governor of Nasarawa State, was a senator, then of course became chairman of the APC. They say sack him, sack him, sack him. Yes, he lost in his polling unit, lost his state. The president-elect also lost his state. The outgoing president lost his state. Lost his state. Is that the reason for you to say that the chairman should be sacked? This is a chairman. Ultimately, this is a chairman of a party who has led you to electoral victory. So the first thing you want to do now is to disband the National Working Committee. How, you know, sometimes Nigerians and our quest for power play, it just is amazing, confounding. I don't know.
I think some people just want to keep talking. You're talking about Abdullahi Adam.
Yes.
Those calling for the resignation of the INEC chairman, what are they really basing it on? At this stage, you're saying the INEC chairman should resign. You know, I think some Nigerians are just in the habit of keeping on talking.
Well, we'll get to talk about that in the conversation segment.
We will round up, but there are human interest stories. Yeah. Because sometimes you can see the papers are crowded on the front pages. The Nigerian Immigration Service revoked the work permit and the visa of a racist CEO of Seplat. Seplat is an oil company in Nigeria. The particulars of the racism were never disclosed, and I would have been interested in that. But they gave him the opportunity for fair hearing. He declined to honor the invitation by the Nigerian Immigration Service, and appropriately, that's the way the sovereign functions. You are here because you have a work permit. You are here because you also have a resident permit or a visa to be here. And if therefore you contravene the terms of the permit, because your work permit and your residence permit and visa, they have terms. If you violate them, a country has the right to do what they have done. So good riddance, many would say. The other one is the photograph on the front page of the paper. Last week, if you recall, there was this tragedy at the level crossing in the Kejajare, Shogunle to around Shogunle area from the Kejajare onto Agege Motor Road. One of the 6 victims that died from that incident was a youth corps member. And there are many versions that have come out. The driver, of course, who is undergoing psychiatric tests, I read some of the stories over the weekend that he was saying that it was no fault of his, and then pleading for forgiveness. I'm sure these are some of the things he will say in the court of law when they charge him for the number of counts.
Some passengers were saying they told him to stop.
To stop, precisely. And the lady said that she had stopped using that bus service on account of the recklessness of the driver. And again, of course, you normally have miracles to this instance. A lady said that when you have a bus, people after a while have their virtually permanent seats. She was going to sit there. Somebody else said, no, come to the front row. Come and sit here. The person who's supposed to be here is not there. And she went and sat on the front row.
And she was saved.
And she was saved because where she normally sits was the point of direct impact.
Some of those things you can never explain.
Chukwudi, that's the way to go.
And on that note, Chukwudi, thank you so much for coming this morning. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
We'll take a break. When we return, our conversation will begin. We'll stay.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo 3-in-1 is such a smart choice. Milo, energy to go further.
From Nestle. Candidates who are interested in gaining admission into NTA Television College JOS for the 2022-2023 two-year National Innovation Diploma Program are to apply for admission through the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board JAMB. Courses available at the college include Film and Television Production, Broadcast Journalism, and Television Engineering Technology. Interested candidates must have a minimum of 5 O-level credits in relevant subjects including English and mathematics. They must also have a minimum score of 100 in the 2022 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination UTME. For more information, please contact NTA Television College JOS or the Marketing Department of any NTA station nationwide. Registrar, Announcer.
dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
My name is School Fred Jeremy Pats. I'm one of the empowered beneficiaries. The name of school I'm here is Government School, Abia Ponkap, Aburukalalu Government, Akwa Ibom State. I'm a young graduate since 2015. I was after the service. Since that 2015, I went to service 15, finished by 2016. I was looking for a job. I would meet some different firms where they cannot accept me. So I was now looking for other small business to do. I just heard the information on net that the president is doing it to have 1 million youth to empower. It was online registration. After that, you upload everything through net. At the end of it now, they shortlisted me. So I went for physical verification. After that, they are now giving me the posting. They post me to my primary assignment, which is here.
Introducing an all-time mega offer. Get over 50% discount in the Airtel Home Broadband mega offer. Buy a router for just 10,000 naira and get up to 240 gigabyte or a MiFi for 5,000 naira and get up to 125 gigabyte bonus data. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband buy.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. As a prompt for our conversation on governorship polls, concerns and issues, let's listen to excerpts from the first part of the conversation put together by our correspondent Abdusalam Jibril.
We don't have a problem with our laws. We have a problem with the execution of those laws. Section 97 of the Electoral Act is very clear. It's a criminal offense for anybody to invoke ethnic or religious hatred during campaigns whatsoever. You are liable to jail for 12 months or a fine of 1 million naira. All the people that are evoking ethnic and religious hatred, they are not even hiding. They are there. How many of them have been arrested? Simple. How many of them have been investigated? That is the culture of impunity.
The elites are influencers and they should take responsibility. They should take responsibility because they encourage this. They can do this at daytime, at night they say other things and do other things. They fan the embers of this division. And unfortunately, the grassroots, if I use that term, as opposed to the elites, are sucked into it. And they are at the front lines, whereas the generals always stay behind. The generals are not always at the same level of exposure. They do these things and send their foot soldiers, and then they stay behind. But we all, everybody, be it elites, be grassroots, we all have a lot to lose if this thing is not nipped right now.
They can see governors going out, making new requests, making more promises. But whatever it is, even if they make the promises rightly now, they will know that the 4 years that they used to take for granted is no more there. It means that for those who are coming into office for the first time, in the next 4 years, if they do not deliver their promises, they are guaranteed that they will not be re-elected. So for me, this is the beauty of this election, that people have now known that they have the authority to vote, and people who think that their seat is permanently for them can't go home because people are now deciding to vote otherwise.
Now, those were excerpts from the first part of our conversation on the subject matter. Now, we have guests with us here in the studios today to extend the frontiers of the conversation, and I'd like to welcome at this time Mr. Victor Aluko, who is Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Mr. Aluko, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. Also here with us in the studios is Philip Agbese. Agbese is a member-elect the Ado Okpoku Ogbadigbo Federal Constituency in Benue. Ado Okpoku Ogbadigbo Federal Constituency in Benue. We're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Also here with us in the studios is Amsfree Ajanaku. It's a media and elections expert and is with the Center for Democracy and Development. Amsfree, morning and welcome.
Thank you and good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. Juma, I think we should spend some time first with the Director of Voter Education and Publicity, Mr. Victor Aluko. Mr. Victor Aluko, you look slightly better refreshed than you
well, indeed.
Time they say is a healer of wounds.
Absolutely.
So you had a good weekend, you rested well, and you're ready to go now.
you look refreshed. So, tell us, let's our viewers into what's happening. We understand, of course, the elections had to be rescheduled because INEC needed to reconfigure the BVAS machines. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, thank you. It's quite important for Nigerians to know that the same BVAS machines were used for the elections on February 25. Those sets of BVAS machines are going to be used for the governorship elections. We don't have exactly the number of BVAS, new BVAS that we can now deploy without using the other ones. So it's very good for the public to know that we have to reconfigure them. Reconfigure means resetting the BVAS to be able to perform another function, to be able to conduct another election. The way the BVAS was manufactured, it was configured. Configure means, simple layman's language, arranging the BVAS. BVAS is a technical equipment. Arranging the BVAS to be able to conduct presidential and National Assembly elections. For it to conduct governorship and state house assembly, you have to reset it for that purpose. You have to impute the new date, and you have to do some other important things. And that's just a simple thing. And that's why we had to ask the learned judges of the Court of Appeal, and they agreed. These things are not rocket science. It's just plain, simple things. And we started the reconfiguration of the BVAS. We'll finish on Tuesday. That's tomorrow. We'll finish them tomorrow, and then we'll be ready for Saturday. So for us, as we have always stated, our interest is for our voters to be able to vote. And that was what we did on February 25. And the results you're seeing, people losing their bases, people who are supposed to be institutions suddenly losing, is a testament to the fact that we are having a new electoral process where nobody, no godfather can lay claim to victory until the results are counted. And Nigerians must look at that part, they must not lose sight of the fact that it is not business as usual. And we as a commission, we will be coping with what I would call emotive reactions of people. Of course, we expected people to react a lot. And even before the elections, as a commission, we knew that we would have to deal with the reactions of people who, unfortunately, their candidates maybe did not win the elections. Because if you voted for someone, you're committed to someone, you believe so much in someone, and if that person does not emerge as a victorious candidate, you will feel disappointed. And of course, you cannot expect somebody who lost to react the same way as somebody who won. So as a commission, we continue to say that whether your candidate won, whether your candidate did not win, INEC belongs to all Nigerians. We are still for you, and we are ready for Saturday. And of course, the governorship candidates will be contesting again. The House Assembly candidates will be contesting again. We'll do our best. We'll do our best. And I tell you, we will still see a lot of surprises.
Indeed. Let me ask from the layman's point of view, where is the data from the reconfigured BVAS being taken to?
The data are taken to our back end. They're taken to our back end. They are there on the IRF, and they're also in our back end. We have our back end where all these things are. And that's what we told the court. And the court was confused, convinced that yes, nothing will be lost. Everything, the candidates who needed to contest the results, every data they needed will not be lost. And of course, the national interest, of course, indicated that we have to conduct governorship and state assembly elections. If we say we're going to postpone indefinitely until those who want to contest the elections are able to now assess every beavers, look at every beavers, when are we going to conduct the governorship elections? Even the parties themselves, I believe, the candidates themselves really want us to conduct governorship elections and state assembly elections. And you know, these elections are really local elections. State assembly elections are very local. That's where you see what we call the Rofo fight on elections. Man, no man. People know themselves, their communities. We needed to finish the these elections so that the country can go and do other things. People need to do other things. Elections are not the only things you do in the country. We need to finish this process. Let Nigerians move to other things, other aspects of life.
Well, Mr. Aluko, we have not had you on Good Morning Nigeria since after February 25th. And I recall that on the eve of the February 25th election, I asked you a question. You were our guest. You joined us via Zoom because, of course, you had multiple engagements on that occasion and you couldn't be with us in the studios. I drew your attention to the fact that we seem now to have gone into a mode of postponing elections. 2011, 2015, 2019. And my question was, what is it that INEC had gotten right this time? And are you ready? Your response was very interesting. You did say that all was well and we were ready. But here we are. We've now had to shift the elections for the governorship and state house of assembly from the 11th of March to the 18th of March. Was this beyond INEC's own operational capabilities? Or it's just one of those things, Mr. Aluko?
Well, I can say that it's due to circumstances beyond our control. By the time the appeal, Court of Appeal, that is, by the time the court gave that order, and giving the candidates go ahead to inspect materials. I think that was a Friday. And then that was a Friday, I think 3rd of March, something like that. And by Monday, of course, it became apparent to us that we needed to also inform the court about the technical developments that were necessary for us to be able to conduct the governorship election and the state house assembly election. And so we went back to court. And it was Wednesday, the other week, that is last week, that we were able to now get a court to
on the 8th of March.
That is, there were now 2 days for us to do that configuration. And of course, technically, we knew we needed 5 days. So it was just natural for us to now painfully postpone. We didn't plan it that way. It just happened. It was a situation we could not control. And of course, we apologize to Nigerians for the postponement because, as you said, we assured the Nigerians that there will never be any postponement again. But then it happened. But as they say, man proposes, God disposes.
INEC disposes.
They say never again. Actually, I'm going to come. What if there's another court order?
We pray that the interest of Nigeria will always prevail.
Okay, we will get into other issues, but I think that this is also very important. Again, we're taking advantage of your presence with us in the studios today. Look, February 25th in a number of locations was a logistic nightmare for INEC, voters and all. What went wrong?
Well, we admitted as a commission that we actually had logistics challenges, and we did not behave like ostrich that buries his head in the sand, thinking that people were not looking at it. We ourselves, even in our situation rooms, we monitor the whole elections. Even in the FCT, we had places in the FCT where by 10 o'clock the polling stations had not opened, and we were wondering what was happening. We were on phone calls to various supervisory presiding officers, EOs, you know, and it was not an easy time for us. But eventually, we were able to solve that problem. Many polling units, almost all across the country, by 11 o'clock were up. The few ones that were not up and running, we were able to get them by 12. And it's not as if it's everywhere that we could not actually open at the right time. But you know, if out of 100 units, you are not able to open in 10, the confusion and the tension in all those 10 will drop all the other 90 where you are able to open. And of course, the media, observers, everybody will dwell on that number of places where you're not able to open. But we admitted we were not happy with it. And when our commission held meeting with the resident electoral commissioners after the February 25 election, we held a meeting with resident electoral commissioners, and the commission read the riot act to resident electoral commissioners. You know, resident electoral commissioners are actually in charge of these elections in their states. Electoral officers are in charge in the local government areas. So we read the riot act to the resident electoral commissioners, and they were instructed that all those who fumbled, all our staff who fumbled during the February 25th election should not be allowed to participate in the governorship election. All those who we could see committed dereliction of duty. Because if you are an electoral officer and you are supposed to ensure that polling units in your local government opened at the right time, and the polling units did not open, INEC is not an institution that covers up anybody. Many of them who did that, will be punished. Yes, they are civil servants, and there are ways to discipline people, from queries to even suspensions and many forms of punishments. Some could even be demoted if they were found to have deliberately caused problems, because Nigerians did not deserve any form of problem in the electoral process. INEC, all we assured Nigerians, it's painful that you still see places where somebody will say it's an electoral officer and units in his local government are not opening by 10. It's an embarrassment. It should never happen.
You know, election commentators say that the shift will give you, INEC, the ample time, apart from reconfiguration of the beavers, to also look at logistics and manpower.
Yes, that's what I'll be saying, that we had an assessment.
INEC overwhelmed?
No, we're not overwhelmed.
Okay.
We're not overwhelmed. We know the number of polling units in each ward, in each local government. We have our offices in each local government. We have staff there. We recruited presiding officers from the NYC. NYC gave us all we needed. We recruited supervisory presiding officers, you know, from federal agencies in the states. We had enough personnel, and we were able to hold, we had MOU with the transport unions, both marine unions and land transport unions. And we had funds that we could use to pay people at the local levels. And the instruction was given that our officials must hire a particular number of vehicles or boats that they themselves requested for. So for the commission, everything was done. So where there were lapses, we recognize these lapses. And that's why we are saying that all those who did not do well will not go scot-free. And that's why we believe that we'll be able to rein in all those who may want to do anything contrary to the directives that have been given. We will be able to rein them in with adequate warnings. We will warn them, and we believe that they will perform well on Saturday.
The National Union of Road Transport Workers have continually disappointed INEC.
No.
Why would you insist on using them all the time?
As a union, we can't say they disappointed INEC. You know, we signed memorandum of understanding with the unions so that they can supervise the members. But we actually sign contracts with vehicle owners in the local government area. The union does not own vehicles. Individuals own vehicles. But you need the unions to be able to have a sort of supervisory role on their members. And of course, the unions try their best, because we even had the president of National Union of Road Workers, in our situation room on election day. He was there. And even he had to call some state executives of the union and tell them, I'm hearing this. What's happening in your place? What's happening in your area? That was the type of control we needed. And of course, we've established that. We are looking at the level of sources. And we believe that as a commission, we've been able to identify where there were lapses. And those lapses will not reoccur.
All right, Mr. Aloko, thank you very much. We're going to pause you in the meantime and bring in the other guests that are with us in the studios. I want to first go to Amsri Ajanaku of the Center for Democracy and Development. You monitored the February 25th elections, and after the elections, of course, we had you here on Good Morning Nigeria. But this is, I believe, the first time you are listening to the INEC Director of Voter Education and Publicity explain some of those very critical issues about which Nigerians have been very unhappy. Now, not without necessarily reopening the issues, is there the possibility of a knock-on effect from what happened on the 25th of February on the governorship elections coming up on Saturday? It's given its reassurances one more time, but is it all well from your viewpoint?
Yes, we at the Center for Democracy and Development, we want to build confidence, because we know that some of the challenges that reared their heads on the 25th would most likely make a lot of citizens feel that the process didn't go well, especially with logistics, and maybe that would be what will happen in the governorship. And so that could also affect the issue of turnout of voters, because part of what we saw on the 25th was frustration of a lot of voters, standing in the queues for long. We documented a situation in which many voters even had to leave because the process was taking longer than they had anticipated it would take, and also giving the assurances that INEC had given. We make no mistake about the fact that INEC built a lot of expectations in the build-up to these elections. And so the whole discussion around over-promising in some instances and under-delivering in those instances became like a big issue for voters, because Nigerians believed when those expectations were being built. But in going into the governorship, we do not want to say that things will go wrong. We want things to work well. If INEC succeeds, it's all Nigerians that succeed. It's Nigeria that is succeeding. So we want to also put out a positive messaging out there, which is why we, in our recommendation from the reports we issued on the election, we've called for a comprehensive review after the elections are done and dusted. Let's sit down. It's not just about assurances. It's not just about INEC, promising us that things will go well. It's a collective responsibility of all stakeholders to sit down and take a critical look at what did not work as well as what worked. And which is why in our messaging on the elections, we've called it a mixed bag of dismal outings here, especially with logistics, and also the outcomes of the election, like INEC has mentioned. There have been outcomes that have been positive that we should also amplify, and knowing full well that there are also our friends from other parts of the continent that are in Nigeria, that were in Nigeria on the 25th, to understudy what we are doing in order to go and replicate it in their countries during their own respective elections. It shows that we had to put on a better performance. And I think the final point I would make, I would say in response to that answer, is that it's good that INEC is talking about internal mechanisms for accountability. Speaking to the recs, having discussions with various personnel whose role maybe they didn't play their role properly. Questions are being asked, but we hope to see that after the governorship, all those issues around accountability, who got what right, who got what wrong, they are not swept under the carpet. We have to review them, and then because doing the same thing over and over again and getting this, getting the same results, it shows that the model has to change, going forward. So this is the area we look at. We want to be positive that things will work well on the 18th when people go to the polls in the states.
Well, this is not the first time elections has been postponed in Nigeria, 2011, 2015, 2019, and now. Why is this particular one different from the others? Why is it raising a lot of eyebrows here?
Yeah, it's raising a lot of eyebrows because at first, a lot of civil society groups celebrated the fact that this particular election at the presidential level was not postponed for the first time in 3 general elections. This was one of the positive that we saw, and in fact, INEC got lots of commendations for that. Only to now come to the governorship and see a postponement, it now takes us back to the fact that there is something fundamentally wrong if we cannot have a general election in which we just proceed smoothly. For instance, the question of the reconfiguration of the beavers, was it that INEC did not anticipate that there would be, because knowing that there's a window, there's a window within which the political parties will challenge results, and knowing that even in the build up to these elections, like from our reports, we talked about how the issues of identity, the issues of insecurity, the issues of the different issues that are shaping the election, and knowing that it's a keen contest, and also knowing our politicians and the trust deficit that they bring into the process, because much of the issues we have seen, like the reconfiguration of the beavers, and the pushback we have seen against it, is also part of the trust deficit. In many other places in the world, these are things, exercises that will be routine, that people will just, know that, okay, the institution is performing its responsibility and the political process will move on. But here, at every step of the way, we are seeing challenges. So INEC, I believe, should have seen that they operate in a very volatile context. And in that volatile context, they need to have anticipated this. And if you also see the crisis communication, because if you're talking about postponement, you're already in a crisis mode. So the crisis communication, we saw that statement that that talked about the postponement of the election coming late into the night. In fact, I would say that most Nigerians were asleep when that statement was issued, and that also would definitely make people spin narrative that become difficult for INEC to counter. And I think while I want to understand the challenges of the commission, we, in terms of the work we do and from where we sit, we believe that INEC can do a lot more in terms of its crisis communication, getting people to understand that these are the challenges, and so that when information comes out, you will not be doing an uphill task of trying to get people to understand the intentions of the commission.
Thank you very much, Amsfree Ajanaku. Let's bring in now Philip Agbese, the member-elect of the House of Representatives. From your perspective, what are the carryover lessons from the 25th of February that we should have at the back of our minds going to Saturday's polls?
Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, I want to commend the Independent National Electoral Commission for the exercise that took place on the 25th of February. I think from what we have observed and analyzed across the country, so far so good. For the first time, INEC did quite a lot for us to achieve this that we have achieved so far. For instance, in the National Assembly, today we are having 6 political parties that will be participating as a parliament. 162 members coming from the APC, 102 from the PDP, 34 from the Labour Party, 18 from the NMPP, 4 from ABGA, and all of that. It shows very well that the Nigerian people, for the very first time, were able to exercise their rights, and they did that freely because of the logistics and the machineries put in place by INEC. Now, when we talk about postponement of election, I don't want us to see it as an INEC problem, because the various situations, like in 2015, it wasn't about INEC that elections were postponed.
We had serious security issues in the country, and the National Security Advisor then, had gone to Chatham House, to say the elections are not possible. The opposition said election was possible. We had 30 local government areas under the control of Boko Haram and crises all over the country. So it wasn't really about INEC that election was postponed. Now in 2019, we had a 1-week postponement of the presidential election, which had to do with the issue of misplacement of logistics material being taken from one state, one meant for another state to another state, and they had to, reassess those issues. And coming back to this recent postponement, it was actually about the political actors, and that these are the real people with the problem, not even the electoral commission or other actors like the security agencies and all of that. I'm a politician, and I think we politicians can actually do better in the interest of the nation to see that things are done better. If you also look at it, INEC is duty-bound by provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act to conduct the governorship election within a stipulated period of time. So those who actually went to court, and like I mentioned earlier, every election with its peculiar challenges and issues. In time past, we were dealing with the issues of ballot snatching and all of that. Not much of that again, because we have beavers accrediting people, and once accreditations are carried out, you can no longer snatch the ballot box to input your figures and all of that into the system. It's also another area that we must commend the electoral agency for what they have done and what they have achieved. They've changed the narrative about election mismanagement, malpractices and abuses from what it used to be in the past to a different scenario entirely.
Are you saying what you are saying because you won your own election?
No, you see, I'm coming from a background. Before going into politics, I was also in the civil society, and I don't think I've left the civil society. And for me, traditionally, the position that I hold today as a leader and someone who is representing my people, we have this traditional thing that if you lie because of your personal interest, you have your teeth, removed by the gods and all of that. So I don't want my teeth to be removed. So I'm not going to tell lies for any reason. But having said that, right?
Tell the truth now.
Yes, so, yes, I'll tell the truth. I'll tell the truth. I always tell the truth to save my teeth. Yes. Because I don't want my children to ask me in future, how come about
what happened
this
to your teeth?
What happened to your teeth? So having said that on the lighter mood, it wasn't about my own election. The general situation across the country. Like my federal constituency, this is the first time that an opposition or political party will be winning elections into that place. It was only made possible by the credibility of the exercise and what the electoral umpire was able to put in place. And not just that, the security agencies, other stakeholders played their key role to ensure that we are where we are today. And like people, have also mentioned, like we have physically seen where strongholds of certain political actors, were lost based on new narratives, agitations, and political party ideologies. In some localities, people are already tired of what they've been having in the last 20 years, and they've been, wanting to have a change. So for the first time, they expressed the will. The will was represented by the outcome of the ballot. And that is the situation today. So we must give it to the electoral agency and all the stakeholders, including the media, because we had very fair reportage of issues, and that is why we're talking about the lapses today. So for us, one, having established the fact that the postponement of the governorship election was done in national interest, coupled with the fact that we also have the court, which also intervened, to give a fair balance between the actors, the agencies, and the stakeholders. So what we have today is not something that we have to fault ourselves or the electoral agencies that we have a postponement. I think something has just been done for us to have a perfect exercise, one that the political actors, people like us, will not fault tomorrow. Because it will also be another disaster for us to have pre-configured beavers for another election. It will throw the country into crisis, chaos, and anarchy. And like the governorship election, it is actually a local exercise. Whereas in the presidential election, in some areas we had voter apathy, I can assure you that in the governorship election, people will be more mobilized to exercise their franchise, because this is the one that deals directly with their feelings, their hopes and aspirations in the local communities. Some people didn't know any of the presidential candidates.
Tough do you think the governorship election will be, coming from a hotspot state like yours, and people terming this election the tsunami election, you know, for people like you coming out for the first time to win election in a stronghold that belonged to another party? How tough do you think it's going to be?
Ordinarily, we have no basis to have any tough election in the country. The actors are members of the same community. We are all brothers and sisters. But because of the preconceived and predetermined mindset of certain political actors who believe that they must win. And I think these are some of the issues that the Electoral Act and the recent conduct of the election by INEC is trying to address, where it is no longer the strong man, but the people. So for us in Benue, we do not anticipate a tough election, except for a few actors who have become excessively desperate over the night. People are now saying that having lost elections, like the governor of my state ran for the Senate and lost that election, so there seems to be a kind of desperate mode that he has activated himself into. I must not lose everything. But what you lose and what you win or what you gain should be decided by the people. If he has done well and the Benue people believe that his political party should continue. Remember that in that election, my political party, we came from the weaker perspective because we are not in control of state structures and apparatus, yet we won 10 out of 11 federal constituency seats. We won 2 out of the 3 senatorial seats, which shows to a large extent that the Electoral Commission was on ground to do the right thing. It is not possible for anybody, for an opposition, to rig or outsmart the ruling party. They had all the resources at their disposal, you know, to influence the outcome of the election in the event that INEC or the officials were ready to compromise. And even the use of crude force.
They are not here to respond to that.
Yes.
You are making allegations.
No. I'm just saying
willingness,
that ordinarily,
willingness or determination to influence electoral outcomes by bribing.
And ordinarily,
stick with the facts.
Yeah, so I'm saying ordinarily they should have that. I'm not saying that was deployed. I'm not saying it was used or it was not used. But I'm just saying that these things that used to affect the outcomes of elections in the past are ordinarily available to ruling political parties, not Benue as an isolated case. Okay. So in the absence of that, we are looking forward to an election where all the actors play by the rules. And we have the understanding that we must be statesman enough that at the end of the day, we will all accept the outcome of the election if we all play by the rules. And we believe strongly, we have full and total confidence in the electoral.
So you're giving a pass mark to INEC now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I chipped in some time ago that you were saying what you were saying because you won, but that's fine. I mean, we have noted the points that you have raised there. Mr. Philip Agbese, member-elect of the House of Reps. I want to bring in again Mr. Victor Aluko. Mr. Victor Aluko, ahead of the elections, we had you here as a guest on Good Morning Nigeria on a number of occasions. We also had 2 of the deputy directors in charge of ICT at different times explaining and demonstrating the use of beavers. And suddenly the beavers that was supposed to be a game changer has become an issue in the 2023 elections, particularly those 2 sets of elections that went by, presidential and National Assembly elections. One key point before we get into beavers, or no, without getting into the details of the ongoing litigation, it appears that thugs and other violent persons disrupting elections are targeting beavers. So if the beavers is targeted, what happens to the election?
Well, the last exercise, we did not record widespread attack on the beavers machines or snatching of beavers machines, because we made everyone to understand that if you take away the beavers machines, we have the capacity to switch it off and render it in operable. Just like if you snatch a car and the owner has this demobilization system, it can be done wherever the vehicle is. So we have that system that we can demobilize the beavers so that you cannot even use it. It's a computer system. Unless you are a computer juggernaut, you know, that you are so vast in the computers that you can maybe manipulate. How many people are thugs who will do that may not even know anything about computers? So we were so sure that the issue of snatching of beavers will not yield any positive thing.
But it could disrupt voting.
Now,
yes.
Even if in some places, if the place people take away the beavers, we will immediately in that location replace the beavers. In every local government, we had what we call backups. We had what we call backups. Not less than 10% of what you deploy in a particular area is available as backup. Because apart from people attacking the beavers or taking it away, a beavers may malfunction completely. It's a technical equipment. It may malfunction right there. It may just break down right there. And you need to replace it. So we had extras that we can deploy to replace any beavers that may be stolen, any beavers that is not functioning well. All those ones are there. And the presiding officers are well trained. If your beavers is malfunctioning, all you need to do is call the technical assistants. We call them RATEX, Registered Area Technical Assistants, to come and help you with them. Just as at home, you might have problems with your phone. You have your maybe teenage kids who will just come and help you fix them. Yeah. Yesterday that happened to me.
Yeah, so my
daughter fixed it within a minute. So the beavers, we have technical assistants in the registration areas who will fix the problems with the beavers. And now, if that problem is not fixable, they will replace it, and the election will continue. That's just the things we have been telling people. And the last elections we had, of course, where we had those problems, those actions were taken, and it did not affect the elections in any way. And anywhere in the 176,606 polling units we will be deploying to next Saturday, anywhere you have such problems, it's never widespread anyway. We will also do the needful, and the elections will continue in those places.
What if, after voting, the thugs now snatch the beavers machine? What happens to those who voted and left?
After voting, thugs attack a particular polling unit, takes away the beavers something. That is, after voting, we are saying a situation where the presiding officer must have sorted out the ballots, must have counted. If he does that, he recalls on Form EC8A. He recalls on the Form EC8A is the strongest evidence that voting took place in a unit. And we think Nigerians need to know this, that nothing that happens after Form EC8A has been filled and has been signed by the agents, has been signed by the presiding officer, anything that happens after, it's secondary. And that's why judges, when there's dispute, they want to know, was election conducted in that polling unit? Is there evidence? Is there the Form EC8A? And if Form EC8As are available, you are sure election was conducted. And I want to say one thing here, that even for a presidential election, the returning officer at the presidential election, who is the chairman of INEC, if it is possible for him to gather all the 176,606 Form EC8As and enter them himself and declare, it will be possible. All the collations at various levels are administrative processes to make it easier for the final collation to be done. That's it. The Form EC8A supersedes every other form, because that is the evidence that people actually exercise their franchise. And nothing invalidates that Form EC8A once it has been filled. Now, if the beavers, the beavers is supposed to be, it gives us the evidence of number of persons accredited. That's what it does. Because if you accredit 300 out of 400, then it gives you the confirmation that yes, 300 people actually came. And now, if anybody records 320 in the formicity, that's classical overvoting, basic overvoting. And that election in that unit, we've seen this happen, will always be cancelled. So that's what the Beavers does. So if the Beavers agreement is taken away, and we do not have that confirmation to show that yes, the number actually accredited is number that is written. At the level of collation, the collation officer will have to discountenance that particular result, because there's nothing to check it, especially if dispute occurs. And so that is why we guard our Beavers machines jealously.
Mr. Aluko, thank you very much. While you were speaking, we were playing back some of the videos that captured some of the occurrences during the February 25th election. In some polling units where voting was disrupted, you saw what happened. And in other cases, after voting had commenced and before the counting of the ballot papers, thugs and other hooligans stormed those stations, destroyed the ballot boxes, and also destroyed the ballot papers. With a clear case of violence in those instances. In Benin, for instance, that occurred at Oredo Ward 4, which is in the GRA. In Lagos, there were also reports of thugs. There was one video of a presiding officer who was being shielded from some of the rampaging thugs. I think they managed to take one of the boxes away. But the question, therefore, is what happens under those circumstances? Forget about Beavers now. They've cast their ballots, the ballot papers are in there, and then all of a sudden hoodlums invade the place to destroy the ballot boxes, they tear up the ballot papers. What happens? If
The ballot papers were destroyed before the sorting, the counting, and recordings could be done, that's a typical violent attack on a polling unit. The election there is cancelled, because there's nothing to now record, to now show the election took place. So we cancel that particular polling unit, and of course it will be noted in our records that we cancelled that particular polling unit. And now, if we link it to what's going to happen on Saturday, you have a situation where somebody can win an election, State House of Assembly. You can win an election with 5 votes, because it's simple majority in a typical local area. And so if such things happen, you'll now be talking about, at the level of collation, you'll be talking about the margin of lead. And you may have to now step down the issue of returning a particular candidate until a supplementary election is conducted, to be able to be fair to all the contestants. I think we have to talk about that if there is a violence attack on a unit and that unit is cancelled, and during collation, the number of votes there, it's more than the margin of lead between 2 candidates, who will be the one who won and the next. The collation, we have to be stepped down for justice to be done. So there is a need for persons who may be planning to do that, to know that such things will happen, that INEC will always go back to conduct that election to ensure that the will of the people is not subverted in any way.
Okay, let's talk about the new twist now to the elections, just a few days coming. The court order allowing people with temporary voter card to vote during the governorship and House of Assembly election. What is the action from INEC?
The commission decided to appeal that court order. The commission is not satisfied with it. We have respect for the courts, for their lordships, but the commission has decided to appeal that court order. Even though the judgment, in the judgment it was stated that the language the lawyers use, that it was not a representative, something like that. It's specific to the 2 people who went to court.
It wasn't a class action.
Specific to the 2 people who went to court. It does not represent a judgment for all persons who had temporary voters cards. So whatever it is, the commission has decided to appeal that judgment to a higher level.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo 3-in-1 is such a smart choice. Milo, energy to go further.
From Nestle. My name is Mary Jolie and I am from Ogun State, but I'm based in Lagos. I've just recently taken a trip to Ibadan, and in returning I decided to take the train. So I said, I'm not so sure, but I'm willing to try.
We thank God that the commencement of this present administration, railway was at a very, very low ebb. And when they came, they took the bull by the horn.
And I'm really happy that I tried. This was probably the most seamless journey I've had since I've been in Nigeria. For example, the train left on time. I was not expecting it to leave on time. 8 a.m., we were on the move. I think it's an amazing alternative to being on the road, especially with just the traffic. It's quite intense, there's insecurity, and it would be amazing to see the government invest a bit more into more trains going into other cities and states. It would really free up the congestion that takes place on the road and leisure type of experience within Nigeria.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
REFARM is the umbrella association of the over 12 million Nigerian rice farmers. Through the administration of good and quality extension services, the Nigerian rice farmer has imbibed good agronomic practices, as a result of which the average yield per hectare, which used to be 1 ton as at 2015, is today 5 metric tons. This has resulted to the increase of the national production from 3 million per annum to 9 million tons per annum. As a result of this, today Nigeria is the largest producer of rice in Africa. Since the beginning of 2015, or the beginning of Ankobora program, Nigeria has officially not imported any rice into the country. All these successes could not have been achieved without the political will of Mr. President.
You're welcome, Jumai. All right. Both Jumai and I are welcoming you back to the last lap of Good Morning Nigeria today. Very interesting conversation. Of course, we know that on Saturday we'll be having the governorship elections in 28 states of the Federation. But throughout the Federation, there will be state houses of assembly elections. So only the Federal Capital Territory, of course, will not be having an election, because the area council elections earlier took place, conducted by INEC, and the National Assembly elections, Senate and House of Reps also conducted along with the presidential election on the 25th of February. So while other states in the Federation will be in lockdown mode, here in the Federal Capital Territory will be free to roam, except, of course, you are living in what one of our colleagues calls the MNK axis. You know that there are some contiguous states to the Federal Capital Territory, so be careful where you stray into or stray out of. But we'll come to that shortly. We're talking earlier about the destruction or the stealing of beavers machines, and also ballot boxes and ballot papers. Philip Agbese, tell us, look, persons would say, oftentimes this is at the instigation of politicians, and it is meant to, as it were, destabilize the stronghold of their opponents. So it's a matter that is actually beyond INEC. How do we deal with instances of this nature?
Well, the director has actually said something that is very key, and I think that ordinarily should detail the actors, because in my local government area, we witnessed a similar situation by a highly placed citizen of the local government. In fact, he was later arrested by the police. What he did was that he waited for the election to be conducted, and when it was about time for sorting of ballot papers, he moved in thugs into the polling unit to destroy these materials. He was reported to the police, and that also brings us to the issue of electoral offenses and sanctions. Beyond 2023 and the discussions that we'll have here and the results that we declare by INEC, we also need that strong institution to enforce the sanctions that have been stipulated by our laws on the activities of political actors during elections. So, for the State House of Assembly election, just 3 or 5 votes is enough for anybody to win or to lose the election. So let it be the duty and responsibility of INEC to also educate the people that in the event that people move into the polling unit of their opponent's stronghold to destroy ballot papers, ballot boxes, and even to run away with the beavers, that there will be a supplementary election. And in supplementary election, because the focus is on very isolated areas, more security will be provided, more observers, more monitors, and everybody will go there. So it will be fruitless for us, the politicians, to go into the destruction of beavers and the breaking of ballot boxes and all of that. Again, we also have to talk to ourselves, build our psychology, because it is an election. There must be a winner, there must be a loser. The tendency for politicians to activate the do or die tendency, I think, is an old-fashioned thing that no longer has a place in our electoral lexicon, and we no longer need it. We must learn to do away with violence and be better actors as far as politics is concerned.
Okay, having experienced this now, you're a first-timer in the House of Representatives. Will you push for the full implementation of the prosecution of this kind of things that is in the Electoral Act?
It is very, very important. And I am going to be one person that will not only stand for it, but to also ensure that the Commission for Electoral Offenses, in the next administration comes into effect. And we all as Nigerians and as stakeholders, not just as politicians, we give effect to it. Because if it is not you today, it could be your neighbor tomorrow. It could even be your political party that will be in opposition tomorrow. And these tools are activated against members of your party. Nobody who goes into an election actually goes into the election to lose. People commit their resources into the election. And I think people are a little bit more satisfied when they see that the process was transparent and the state is also able to guide against violence against them and all of that.
Okay, Philip Agbeshe, thank you very much. One of the points you just made now, that nobody goes into an election with the hope of losing. I think politicians are probably the most optimistic set of human beings that you can encounter. And until the results are declared in a free and fair contest, that's when it dawns on them that look, this was going to be a tough one. Yeah. The analogy to that is usually with boxing. When the two boxers are being ushered into the ring, you have a long walk, from the dressing room, and then excuse me, please. You have a long walk from the dressing room, and then they get onto the ring, and everybody, you pass, and then you touch your gloves. And sometimes the first minute of the first round is a knockout, and then that's the way it goes. Politicians, very optimistic set of persons, this, and then when the results come, it's a question of rigging. But 2023, Anstre will bring you here again, against the backdrop of what happened. Instances of voter intimidation, instances of voter suppression. And many are saying that those things are continuing ahead of Saturday's governorship election. What is it that we need to be concerned about and how therefore do we address those concerns?
Yes, first and foremost, I think Honorable Philip painted a very rosy picture, and it was really interesting that you asked, whether it's because he won, but we know he's committed to the process, and so, but that brings us to why we describe the election as a mixed bag of positive and also many negatives. Even if, for instance, our report showed that some of the issues of voter suppression, some of the violence we saw, the destruction of electoral materials we saw, those things happen in like 1.2% of the polling units across the country, which that is what our data documented. But that 1.2% translated to over 2,000 polling units. So if you have 2,000 polling units and you have Nigerians there disenfranchised because all of these incidents happened, then it's also a situation in which they will not be happy the way Honorable Philip is happy that their vote has not counted. And if you look at when Professor Mahmood was collating the result, each of the state collation officers that appeared, after giving the results, the question will be asked, are there cancellations? Are there places where there was violence? So it shows that the violence, the cancellations have become commonplace, that we now even expect it to be a part of the collation process. And that is leading to the disenfranchisement of several voters. So I think, and our center, CDD, thinks there should be a lot more accountability when it comes to this discussion around cancellation of votes. There should be a lot more accountability, and we should be able to benchmark it with, for example, in a place like Lagos, where the margin was very close in the presidential election. Some of those areas where there were violence, there was suppression of the vote, could have added to create a bigger margin, which is why a lot of the people who have complaints have actually legitimate complaints when they say that that result, even though they won against all expectations, is not actually what they should have gotten. So that's one point of the discussion. The other point of the discussion is, what should be our response strategy? Should it be a strategy of after the fact, we allow the hoodlums to move in there, destroy the materials, and then we're now chasing them, arresting them, prosecuting them, which in most cases we never get to know what ends up with those cases, because down the line other events come and overtake those events. So we should be able to have a security measure, and I know this is not in the province of INEC. This is actually in the province of security. We should have security measures that we deter, and not a measure that we wait and we just assume that okay, the cancellation will happen, and then we're now closing the barns after the horses have bolted. So I think that is a critical response. Then, in terms of what we're also seeing playing out in the governorship, we are seeing a place like Lagos in which there's a huge, massive contestation over the question of identity. So, press conferences are being addressed, by people, saying we're original people of Lagos, So that is now a narrative, a discussion in the election. And even though the campaigns are still on, the issues around what the respective candidates will deliver in terms of governance is not featuring a lot more than the question of identity. And our own response to that, in terms of how we should address that, is to be able to talk to the political actors that we should have a more unifying message. Many of these politicians signed up to the peace accords, and part of the peace accord is for them to stay away from rhetoric that would divide the people and make the people to be polarized, because that is how you breed conflict. That's how violence also comes into the process, when you begin to divide people along various lines of identity. So I think we need a lot more of those messaging, especially in the states where you are having the issue of identity playing a big role in the electoral contest. And finally, we also have states that insecurity is also a defining issue in those states. For example, one of our reports documented what we call the multiple nodes of conflict across the country, especially in places like the Northwest. looking at how all those factors that drive conflict would also impact the election. Identity is, one of them also, like in a state like Zamfara. So you are having a lot of issues around identity, defining how people voted in the presidential and also how they will vote in the governorship. And the last point I want to make about the governorship, and I think Honorable Philip alluded to that when he talked about the fact that you now have a reconfigured, political structure in Nigeria in terms of the National Assembly now. It's not actually 6. There are 8 political parties that have elected both senators and House of Reps members. You're talking also about a party like the SDP, which won some seats. So you have a lot of third, fourth parties that have come in. So how would that play out in the governorship? We are seeing that in terms of the fact that people voted a particular pattern in the presidential election does not necessarily mean they will vote the same pattern in the governorship, because as it said, all politics is local. And if all politics is local, what you are also going to see is a lot of realignment, because what the presidential election also showed us is that you have a lot of split voting in which the electorate, and that's also a good thing for our democracy, the electorate voting a particular party at the presidential level and voting different parties at the legislative level. So we're also going to see the effects of those, the realities of split voting happening also in the governorship.
No, I just wanted to throw this in before you pop me your question. Some of the voters have said that they didn't know some of the candidates. Once they just got the ballot paper, it was just that party that they were just
told to vote
in all instances. Others were more discerning to say, no, this is presidential. So if I thumbprint this one too early in the ballot paper, somebody might know. But hey, just thumbprinting whichever came to them. So,
yes, indeed. From what you've said, would you say we are having a more refined political process now in Nigeria?
Absolutely. I think this is the beauty. This is why when INEC gets some knock on some areas, it should also get some pat on the back in other areas in terms of the outcomes, because we are now having a situation in which we are pushing towards multi-party democracy. Before now, we had more or less 2 parties, but the process is becoming a lot more competitive, and we are going to have a lot more political accountability, because the people who have won mandates, especially the third, fourth party that have won mandate, can now use that to recolor. So we're going to see a lot of recoloration in terms of the kinds of debates we're going to see coming out of the National Assembly. And we want to also see that play out in the state assemblies, such that you have a situation in which there's a variety, there's a diversity of political representation in the various state houses of assembly.
Would that be possible in the State House of Assembly? Because most of the time the governors control the State House of Assembly.
Yeah,
would we expect a vibrant conversation there?
Yes, because now the energy we have seen in these elections, especially the demographic that has actually come out in this election to tilt the scales beyond the kind of outcomes we're used to, I think that energy is going to translate into the kind of representation we're going to see, and there will be a lot more energy. There will be a lot more diversity of ideas coming in terms of the kind of ideas and messages that the political parties will be bringing in. And I think what we're also going to see is that a lot of the defections we saw before now, in which people just abandon the political party that brought them into probably a House of Reps or Senate, is going to be a lot more reduced. The reason being that even after a lot of these candidates won their elections, the voters are sending messages to them to say, with the way we've suffered to get you elected, if you get there and you jump ship, we are going to come for you by way of recall. So I think this election has produced those outcomes. And even for people who dispute, the elections, there was a trending content of a particular presidential candidate who posed with a senator-elect from his party, with her certificate of return. And the argument was that if you dispute the election and say you're calling for cancellation, how come you are also endorsing the victory of one of your own? It shows that there was something or a lot of things that were credible about the process. So we cannot throw away the baby with the bathwater. But there is an echo chamber, especially on social media, which we believe that INEC needs to address. The online misinformation space, the disinformation space. We as civil society were doing our part to do the fact-checking that is required. And there was an interesting, along that line, there was an interesting thing that happened, I think at the weekend, where there was, this group that said they were collating the results by themselves because they didn't believe in what INEC did. And along the line, as they were collating the results, the opponents, went into the lead and they shut down the collation process. So it shows that we have narratives that are being spun on social media, which should be addressed, and that will require a lot of fact-checking and a lot of messaging from all the stakeholders.
All right, Austria Janaku, thank you very much. The social media element you brought in now is very interesting. For the good of your sanity, avoid the social media reports with regard to the election 2023. Simple. Just shut yourself out of...
No, I have friends who send me things and I tell them, but why are you sending me this? I work in NTA. I cannot accept this from the social media. And they tell me, what do I mean? NTA will not...
Well, you have the time. You have the time engaging them. That's why I'm saying just shut yourself out of it and you maintain your health.
Yeah.
Let's get Victor Aluko again to comment on one aspect. Of course, as I said, this will be a continuing conversation before the polls on Saturday. There were reports of clumsiness amongst the presiding officers in handling the beavers, which led to delays and so on and so forth, raising questions about the quality of training that they got before the election. 3 days appear to have been too short, and many others are also arguing that some of those persons who were trained probably didn't have the basic elements to get them trained. Is INEC working on this?
Yes, we're working on this. We deployed 176,606 presiding officers. If any teacher teaches a whole class, you still find out that all of them will not pass. That's the nature of human beings. We actually train them. They are youth corpus. We train them and we deploy them. Now, in areas where we noticed that some had issues implementing what they were taught, we've noticed all this, and we're taking care of that to ensure that there's no problem in those areas, because we always need speed at polling units. We talked about speed. If you are having 750 voters in your unit and you need to attend to all of them, you need speed. And so if a presiding officer starts fumbling with the beavers, it's a disadvantage to the process. And so there are places where we notice this clumsiness, and we just take it as part of human errors. And all these we're taking care of. At this stage, I cannot give a number to it, but it is true that there are places where the presiding officer were fumbling and they could not get it right in time until they got assistance. And so such persons, we've noticed this and we're taking good care of this. So that, we always say that when you are dealing with human beings, you won't have a perfect system. You won't have a perfect system. Brilliance is widespread, but it's not everybody that is brilliance. And sometimes academic brilliance may not easily be seen when it comes to practicals.
Okay, quickly on a final note, what should Nigerians, the electorate, expect from INEC? Briefly.
Well, the electorate should expect a good performance from INEC on election day. We will ensure that the logistics problems do not reoccur. We will try our best to open in time, because we know that people even go to these units as early as 7:30. So we'll ensure that we are able to open everywhere in good time, and we'll also ensure that we're able to transmit our results right time. The last time we had a delay transmitting the presidential result, but we're able to transmit on our, if you go on our portal, you see the results. We're able to transmit the House of Representatives result and Senate result in real time. So this time around, all the processes, we'll be able to implement them as expected. And we urge Nigerians to please, you know, as we've stated, in the national interest, let us all give INEC the necessary support. We below INEC, our allegiance, as we say, is to the people of Nigeria. Our commitment is to ensure that all voters are able to vote. And in the elections we are going to, we want a lot of turnout. we want a lot of turnout.
Okay.
The last turnout was not satisfactory. We want more people to come out and vote.
All right. Mr. Victor Aluko, Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission, we'd like to thank you for being our guest today, and thanks also for the candor in responding to the issues. I know that there are many issues that are still pending. We'll deal with them, particularly the kinds of threats that have been issued. And then people are recording themselves in videos and circulating on social media. If you don't do this, if you don't vote this way, this is what will happen to you. And one or two persons have also, in local dialects or local languages, issued threats to government employees and government employers, like tyrants used to do in those days in East and Southern Africa. If you don't vote for our party, it would tell us who pays your salary. I'm sure those are issues that INEC would also be taking a look at. Victor Aluko, thank you for being our guest this morning. Philip Agbese, member-elect of the House of Representatives, we also appreciate your being with us. And Amsfree Ajanaku, media and elections expert, for the Center for Democracy and Development, we appreciate your contributions to our discussion this morning. All right, that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Tomorrow is another day, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Join us then. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Jummai Yusuf.